how are we making transportation services more accessible and affordable to citizens? And the second question that I have is, how are we leveraging technology to improve citizen service delivery in the transportation sector?
Can we, I'm sorry. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. I am Ajitabh Sharma, 96 batch IS officer. I am from Rajasthan cadre, and currently I am working as chairman and managing director of Jaipur City Transport Services Limited, and my so-called passion basically lies though in water sector and energy sector and partly towards sustainability. First of all, I'm very thankful to Ravi Gupta ji and Freshworks for giving me this opportunity to remain present here and express my views. Karthik, can you repeat that first question?
Yeah, so the first question is, how are we making transportation services accessible and affordable for citizens, and the role of technology in delivering great citizen experience in this specific sector?
Okay, so I'm not directly going into what we at Jaipur City Transport Services Limited, we call JCTSL in Jaipur City. We exactly are doing a few innovative things. I'm not discussing those into detail, but whatever I could gather and the manner in which we planning our operations and business functions to be reorganized and re-evolved, I would simply try to focus on few points. See, what I understand is transportation is basically, it is a kind of whole ecosystem. It is not something related to like owning personal cars, that is the personal transport, or then two-wheelers are also there. Then there are private minibuses also which ply in quite a large number, particularly like tier 2 or 3 cities like Jaipur, Nagpur, Indore, Bhopal. Then there are metro rail services also, and then there are city bus services which are operated by the government-owned state public utilities. So it is a whole ecosystem. The solution doesn't lie only with state transport utilities. We have to look at the whole scenario, and as you mentioned about accessibility and affordability, right? So it is, when we talk about accessibility and affordability, it is basically a kind of problem which we have to solve. So when we talk about accessibility, so in terms of transportation engineering, coincidentally I am a civil engineer also, and I have studied transportation engineering also in our college days. So it is more about like developing a kind of service plan when we talk about accessibility. So it is not only that you provide like a metro rail service or city bus, but the overall idea is about mobility, creating good mobility ecosystem in the whole city. So it has to be like walkable, safe, reliable, accessible, affordable, responsive, participative, and at the same time it has to be sustainable also. Sustainable not only in terms of the environmental context, but also in terms of the business operations. It has to be sustainable, otherwise we will not be able to provide transport services for a long period of time. So the National Transport Policy of Government of India, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs also gives a mandate to all states that all major cities would develop a comprehensive mobility plan. And that CMP, comprehensive mobility plan, needs to be revised in every 5 years. And it would be entailing the overall transportation ecosystem, that how the problem of providing affordable and accessible transport can be achieved. So, and the major underlying criteria, like what we are doing in JCTSL, one thing is that we are developing a service plan, and we are in touch with Ernst & Young, and then there are a few other small think tanks which are working at the local level. Currently, we are able to cover, say, around like 20% of the road network of Jaipur City through our mix of 300 state-owned buses and around 1,200 private minibuses or midi buses which are operated by private owners. So first, this 20% has to be enhanced at least to 60%. So I need to cover 60% of the road network area. how do I cover that 60% of the area? Because I have to keep the social aspects also in my mind. So I have to take care of the marginalized sections of the society, people where low-income households, areas where low-income households are situated, the adjoining slum areas. So how do I make my investment? That becomes very important. So when I enhance my road network coverage from 20 to 60%, what kind of mode I have to select? Whether I have to, the government has to invest more in the metro rail operations or into city bus operations, or whether the government should consider more about integrating the IPT system, that is the intermediate public transport for first and last mile connectivity. So unless we start thinking about for each city in terms of developing a CMP, the comprehensive mobility plan, and we have few objective guidelines for preparing a service plan. And then there are a number of things like there then would be how you are catering to the institutional areas or the office areas where the office spaces are there, how you are catering to areas like where hospitals are situated or where the industry is located in the periphery area of the town, whichever we are talking about. So these all aspects are to be considered in terms of accessibility. And the basic idea is like within 500 meters, there has to be a bus stop. And when we talk about metro rail operations, because I have worked as CMD of metro also, the idea is that within a reach of 1 kilometer, there has to be a metro station. So Jaipur is nowhere close to have that kind of service level benchmark in terms of metro rail operations, but the expansion which we are planning, the fleet expansion for city bus operations of creating an electric mobility ecosystem, we are thinking about reaching this level of a bus stop near 500 meters, consolidation of IPT intermediate public transport in terms of hiring not only buses, but getting into contract with service providers which run electric three-wheelers also. So it is something, it is a very complex set of things. So it is about accessibility. And last point, affordability is basically less related to engineering aspect. It is more related to the business aspect of the organization. So because like if the ticket ranges from rupees 5 to rupees 20, 5, 10, 15, 20, it is based on the distances the passenger travels through the bus for each or number of stops. So how do I finalize that? That is not in the hand of the State Transport Authority. Come electric buses, creation of electric mobility ecosystem, the per kilometer cost of operation, whoever says what, I have been reading a lot of reports from different forums and different think tanks, but when you go into the market and bid out, electric vehicle costs you more as of now. Though the cost gets spread out in a period of 12 or 15 years, but then there are, because of the issues of replacement of battery after a period of 7 to 8 years, the per kilometer cost of operation is high. Who is going to bear that cost? So if there isn't any provision like the further extension of FAME 2 subsidy by Government of India or something like viability gap funding from some kind of transport related fund which is created at the state level or some kind of international aid which I get, even for operations, not for my capital investment, capital expenditure, for operations also. So depending on that, I will determine my tariff structure. So that would determine about the affordability. And the international reports and perhaps the ministry's report also, Mahua, I read somewhere that it is said that an ordinary household should not be spending more than 20% of it, the household income for transportation purposes. But if we dig deeper and try to analyze the socio-economic aspect in detail, there would be large number of people in big metropolitan towns where the public transportation system is not well developed. They end up in spending more than 50 to 60% of their total household income for the purpose of transportation and commuting, like going to schools or hospitals or to work. So this is a basic facility. So money has to come from somewhere, keeping this benchmark of 20% of out-of-pocket payment from the households. How can government titrate it and then further facilitate, specifically for the disadvantaged and the marginalized sections of the society? So it is more about, more like a kind of a policy issue where fiscal interventions by the state government or the authorities or other financial institutions is an important point on cyber security, because I have worked in the energy sector, and the issue which happened just close to last Diwali in UP when around more than 1 lakh electricity residential connections got shut off because of some IT glitch. So perhaps it was mishandling of the IT system, or it was something deliberate. I am not yet aware, but some committee was constituted, and particularly when we are dealing with like public utility sectors, which is water, energy, telecommunication, urban transportation, and transportation as such. Like when we talk about airways or railways or roadways. So cyber security is a very critical point. So rather than getting into exactly what you are expecting, I missed the reply of my second question which you had asked. So rather than going into detail, so my take on the issue of like IT intervention or use of information technology in citizen-centric services is, so I'll give you a very small example. I'll try to explain what we are trying to do in JCTSL. So it is always something more about than digitization. So digitization, then digitalization, and then digital transformation. There are 3 stages. So normally we get stuck either in the government systems, either in the digitization, which is like e-filing thing or translating the data or the documents which are present in hard copy into digital form. So that is the only beginning stage. But we have to digitalize our, so we have to digitalize our processes. That is more important. So taking the cue from digitization, digitalization, and the third step, which is digital transformation. So what we have done, like in JCTSL, is there are 2 different sources. Namaskar, sir. There are 2 different sources from where we are fetching the data. One is that in all buses, we have implemented electronic ticketing machines, ETMs. So the tickets are generated through the ETMs. The whole data goes to the server, A. The second source from which we are fetching the data is the GPS, Geographical Positioning System or Global Positioning System, whatever we call. We, around 3 months ago, we had GPS-enabled buses only up to 20% of the total fleet size, but now we have reached up to the level of 85%. So that is the second source of data which we are getting into our whole database. This is the digitization which has happened. But how to utilize this data is more important. So now what we are doing it, and we have received excellent results in terms of optimizing our operations, enhancing our revenue, and increasing the number of passenger load. So the bottom line is that initially I used to fetch around 1.25 lakh passengers per day through my bus services. So that number has increased to 1.5 lakhs. Another basic criteria, which is earning per kilometer. So before using whatever tools, I'll further explain what we are doing. So the earning per kilometer was 39 rupees per kilometer. The total buses which we operate, each bus runs say for around 250 kilometers, and if there are 300 buses, multiply by that. So earning per kilometer has increased from 39 rupees to 44 rupees. That is a big jump. My cost has remained same. My bottom line has improved. My balance sheet has improved. So what we are doing is simply is that from the ETM data, electronic ticketing machine, I am in a position to now know that of the, say for example, 12 hours of total operations of each bus, what are the times when I am picking the passengers most, which we call the peak hour. So I know now that in the morning like 8 to 9 a.m., my buses are running half full. At around 12 p.m. on this particular route, they are running more than full. That is, the load factor is more than 100%. And what is the position in the evening peak hour? Then late night. So now I have full data about the hour-wise detail of the load factor, one. And two, I have the information about the frequency also. Like now, what I have done is I have optimized, like say, if there is a particular industrial zone, which is in the periphery of Jaipur city. So if I have to say, like pick 1,000 passengers, so I cannot keep my passengers waiting. So I have to pick 1,000 of traffic, say if like in 1 hour. So how many buses I have to deploy? Now I know that. So if I have to transfer my bus from some non-peak area, which is running at say like 50 or 60% of the load factor, so I will shift my buses to those areas where my buses would run at full load factor. Because if I am into contract with the service operator on payment of per kilometer basis, my cost remains same. But if more passengers can utilize the services, so this is what is like digitalization, actual utilization of technology. Because unfortunately, with my experience of last 26 years in Indian administrative services, I have seen number of interventions in different departments where we have spent gigantic amounts to find IT solutions, to replicate the solutions. But when the time comes to actually utilize that technology, it becomes difficult because then it comes to actual decision making, utilizing the tools or the mammoth data which is available to us. How do we do that? We have to prioritize. So this is a very simple example. And in the next level, the digital transformation. So I'm just linking it with the theory, what we have practiced. So what we have done is that we have launched a mobile app around 2 months ago, and we had a big urban mobility event in Jaipur city also, organized by Economic Times. I'm sorry, I'm taking name of another event organization. But so what we have done is that through that mobile app, now contactless ticketing facility is available there. But through that mobile app, we are now able to generate and push information and messages to the passengers, to the citizens of Jaipur city, that what is the scenario of the operation of buses. Because if it is a holiday, so the offices, government offices are closed, schools and colleges and universities are closed. So I do not operate whole of my bus fleet. So I go for curtailment. But I go for curtailment, the decision making for curtailment with the depots which I operate, the depot managers, do on basis of the tools which we have been able to generate. So we are experimenting this thing for last 2 months almost by now, and it's a good amount of data. And further, how to optimize the operations, not only operations, and what I said in the very beginning, that how to increase the road network coverage through my systems. That is what we are experimenting. So the gist is that we use IT tools, we spend sometimes hundreds of crores of rupees, particularly in big departments like water and energy and urban transport. But unless they are being used for some kind of predictive decision making, so I think we are not fully utilizing the investments which we have made, and the ROE should always be questioned. What is the return of the investment or expenditure which we have made?